Live from the Pix 11 Social Media Center, he's been a witness to some of the biggest stories in history. Now, Marvin Scott is sharing his remarkable experiences as a reporter, anchor, and legend in broadcast news. It's Marvin Remembers, brought to you by Potamkin of Manhattan. If the Potamkin nameplate isn't on the back of your car, you probably paid more than you should have.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again as I dig into my archival vault, looking back at some of the 15,000 or so stories I've done over the past 50 years.
Quite a number.
And I'm joined by our digital director, Rolando Peugeot, once again, and he always encourages me to look into my vault of old videos. And I'll tell you, it's an enlightening experience to see some of these stories. And today we're going to feature something very interesting. In a day when police are reporting record low crime figures, we're going to flash back to the 1990s when crime was spiraling out of control in New York. Matter of fact, back in 1990, we had a record number of murders. Murders had spiraled over 17%. We had over 22 murders back then in
2200, yeah, a great number.
2200,
yeah, right.
Back in 1990-91.
Yep.
But that was a time where policing was quite different
Yes.
back then. And there were two, I would say, iconic, legendary police detectives who were immortalized in a film that is one of the tops of all time called The French Connection.
Yes.
And it won 5 Academy Awards back in 1972. Billy Friedkin directed it. And it was based on the story of the largest heroin bust to the time, 112 pounds of pure heroin and worth tens of millions of dollars on street value. Now, that was the film. But the people behind the film were two iconic police officers, first-grade detectives Sonny Grosso and Eddie Egan. I'm very proud to say they were both good friends. And known them for years. But they really were into policing. Now, Sonny came from a large family, had many sisters. Eddie was in the Marines, and they got out of the Marines. He played baseball for one of the farm teams of the New York Yankees.
That's
and then
right.
he joined the police department. And he and Sonny, they teamed up. They were quite a team. I think in the time they were together, Rolando, they, I think, were credited with somewhere in the neighborhood of 10,000 collars.
Extraordinary. You couldn't do that today.
But policing was a little different. It was before the Miranda law. We have to read people their rights. I mean, you grab a guy and...
The interview is great. It really goes into that and their frustrations with how policing, there were curbs on policing that they feel made it a more lawless city.
That's right. Yeah. And their views, and they you'll see, they are ultimate New Yorkers.
Yes.
They love this city, and they love policing.
But
before we see why don't we take a look at the trailer from The French Connection? Take a look.
All right, Popeye's here. Get your hands on your heads. Get off the bar and get on the wall. What's my name?
Popeye Doyle. If he doesn't like you, he'll take you apart. And it's all perfectly legal, because Doyle fights dirty.
You want to take a ride there, fat man?
And plays rough.
Anybody want a milkshake?
Doyle is bad news, but he's a good cop.
We're going now. Bye.
How many times have I been downhearted, looked up and saw him smiling like a shining dime? Yeah. And hoped that he would stay and tell me why he was so happy if he had the time.
Who is that clown? Jewish lucky man. What about the last of big-time spenders? You make him? No, you? He's spreading it around like the Russians are in Jersey. They say we stick around and give him a tail.
Our friend's name is Boca, Salvatore Boca, B-O-C-A. Well, downtown, they're pretty sure he pulled off a contract on a guy named DeMarco.
And that's not a drop. I'll open up a charge for you at Bloomingdale's. B-O-C-A.
Doesn't matter.
And then on our own, after working a whole day and night, we tail him to Brooklyn. And we sat on him for practically a week. Now, who do we come up with?
The French Connection. A millionaire exporter with a record too clean to be true. And Doyle knows it. But he's been known to make mistakes.
Your hunches have backfired before, Doyle.
This time, he can't afford to be wrong.
know the deal hasn't gone down. I know it hasn't. I can feel it. I'm dead certain.
Last time you're dead certain, we went with a dead cop.
All right, let's hit him. Hit him!
All right, nobody move! Put your hands in the air!
The stakeout.
Popeye, it's me.
The payoff. The chase.
Don't stop.
Hey, Coke, you all right?
French Connection.
They still talk about that chase to
That
this
chase,
day.
which was shot down in Bensonhurst under the elevator train.
It took days for Billy
Yes.
Friedkin to shoot that. And
Masterful.
you saw there, it was Gene Hackman who played Eddie Egan, who was Popeye. And then Buddy Russo was Sonny Grosso, played by Roy Scheider.
Who was known as Sonny Cloudy.
Well,
What
Cloudy
was that about?
No, Cloudy was Sonny's nickname when he was in the department.
Yeah.
And they called him Cloudy because Sonny tended to be pessimistic at times. And besides, he said it was the opposite of Sonny.
Yeah, he was a realist, and we'll see a taste of that in a package. That we're
You
about to
absolutely
play.
will. But I gotta tell you this: the French Connection won 5 Academy Awards:
Yeah.
Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Director, Best Screenplay, and Best Editing. And the only person who wasn't there to pick up the Oscar was Sonny.
Sonny.
He was sitting in Harlem, and the reason
And why was he there?
he hated to fly. Sonny had this fear of flying. When Robin Moore was writing the book, he was supposed to meet with Robin to work on the book. He would get on a plane.
Yep.
And years later, his partner Larry Jacobson, when they were producing movies, they had to go out to California. Sonny had a great sense of humor. He still has a great sense of humor. He brought along a parachute. I think Sonny's watching us now, and I hope you're feeling better, Sonny. Love
sure
to you
do.
and to Chris.
And a couple of comments here. Pedro Cruz is saying here, 2,200 murders in the year 1990. Just a stunning fact. Evelyn Krauss, that was a good movie. It sure was. And some folks just saying hello. And Tito Valentine saying, I grew up watching your stories, Marvin.
Oh, thank you. Still telling
we
them.
are about to watch a real good one right now. Right?
Okay,
Yeah.
and this is very good because you see what policing was. Keep in mind this was circa 1991. Sonny Grosso, Eddie Egan.
With crime statistics constantly going up, there is a sense of lawlessness on the streets these days. Is it because the cops aren't doing their job, or is it because our society has changed? 2 of New York's most famous cops, you may very well recognize them, reunited last month to talk to me about law and order in the 90s. Sonny Grosso and Eddie Egan. The scourge of the drug underworld, 2 of the most feared and respected cops of their time. More than 10,000 arrests between them during the 60s and 70s, the days before Miranda, search and seizure, and other measures that restricted the powers of the cops. In their round-the-clock war against hardcore drug offenders, they charged through the dope world with the crazed bravado of a bull with a death wish, often in disguise. In 1961, they hit the jackpot with a seizure of 120 pounds of pure heroin, their infamous bust immortalized in the movie The French Connection, Gene Hackman playing the flamboyant Egan and Roy Scheider the sensitive Grosso. Grosso and Egan hung up their shields in the 70s and now produce movies about cops. Although the long blue line has passed them by, they still think and breathe cop. And last month, during one of their rare get-togethers, Grosso and Egan spoke to me about the differences between being a cop in this city 20 years ago and now.
When Eddie and I were walking the streets of New York, there were 350 homicides a year, and 2,500 last year. Less people in New York than when I was a cop here. There's been a migration out of the city, so there's less people, and the homicides are tenfold.
What do you account the change?
I account the change to no respect for the law and no respect for each other, and acquisition of all kinds of handguns and Uzis and everything else, which could never exist when him and I were cops, because we would search 100 guys a day when we were working. And you can't do that now because of search and seizure, and Miranda, and all the other rights for the defendants, and no rights for the policemen anymore.
They're scared of doing the job. Well, the situation today is you only get in trouble if you do your job. Yeah. The more you do, the more trouble you get. With all these associations and what have you that's marching on City Hall and saying the cop is wrong, the cop is wrong. The video cameras are out there. They're running in and challenging the authority of the cop. Leaves them with no authority. They don't fear us. They don't fear the cops.
Why not? What's changed?
Well,
they used to fear you guys.
The cops today are coming into a job as a job, not as a career.
I'd like to get $1 for every off-duty collar him and I made. And now the one thing is, if that's what you're doing, you're working 8 to 4, well, that's a different job.
I loved it. I'd put a tie on and go to work. And I'd like to get there an hour earlier so I'd have an extra hour in there. I loved fighting it.
The police departments all over went downhill when they stopped having the cop on the beat. And the one thing is, when a cop was on a beat, he knew who belonged there, he knew who had the right to be there, and he knew who didn't belong there. So we have to bring back what we had years ago with the police. We have to bring back a respect for the police.
Let the police department be the police department and run the police department, not let crybaby associations run the police department. And politicians.
Who is the civil rights for? Do you know anybody that's had his apartment kicked in the middle of the night and was completely innocent? Do you know anybody that was harassed by a cop on the street? You personally, there are people that happened to. It is the criminal who puts up the biggest beef. It is the criminal. And there's all these organizations who fight about defendants' rights, put all the cops on the defense, and there is no more offense. So don't get in trouble. Pick up your paycheck every day and go home. I walk around with a 38. He walks around with a 38. What do you walk around with? What's your protection?
Our 238s.
Crime is up, arrests and convictions down, and cops, they claim, are on the defense instead of the offense. They attribute the change primarily to one thing.
The one major difference is the abundance of drugs. Drugs is the killer of the society that Eddie and I knew. Everybody has gotten into the business now. Everybody. Where it came, we used to deal with organized crime. A gigantic problem now, we're dealing with disorganized crime. And disorganized crime and organized crime are both crime, but I would rather deal with organized crime than disorganized crime. Because in disorganized crime, everybody's out there doing whatever they wanted to do. In organized crime, only certain people could do it.
I'd make probably 1,000 arrests a month if I was dealing with it today. In our time, heroin was a hidden factor. The dealers were hiding it. They weren't openly defying you. Today, they march in the court. They're out the back door as quick as they are.
Today, they've told the uniform force not to make narcotic collars.
The laws are there. They're not enforced. Everybody is a do-gooder.
And everybody knows that. That's why every scurv in the world comes from all over and comes to this city, because it's the most liberal city in the world. And you can get away with murder here. Criminals are like children. If you don't teach children that you mean business, they're going to go on doing anything they want to do.
And when you're a cop, you brought that little child home, and Daddy dealt with him and straightened him out. Now you got to wake up Daddy because he's under the influence of crack, and he's going out to do worse than the kid did. So he says he's only a kid. He'll learn. He'll learn the hard way.
You missed the job. You like to come back?
Yeah, I miss the job every day of my life, and even though I'm making a lot more money now than I ever made before, I'll still always be a cop. Like Lasorda bleeds Dodger blue, I bleed New York City police blue. And yes, I miss it. I don't know if I'd ever be able to come back on a job and do the job that Eddie and I done, the way the job is set up today.
Would you like to come back today?
If I ran the city, I ran the department. That's the only way.
Your way?
My way.
And succinctly, what would your way be?
I would throw them all out that don't want to do the job. They come in the job to get a badge and a gun to get into the movies for nothing. If they're going into the movies for nothing, I expect them to make a rest in the movie.
Grosso and Egan are critical of the justice system, turnstile justice, they say, and often punishment that doesn't match the crime. During their many years as cops, Grosso and Egan made more than 10,000 arrests.
10,000 arrests.
Two
guys.
iconic cops who are legendary figures and true New Yorkers.
Absolutely.
And I send our best regards and our love to Sonny and Chris, who I believe are watching us right now.
Great to know that he's in the
You have
audience.
a couple of comments there?
Couple of comments. I mean, people generally reacting to this. The original Popeye Doyle, indeed. Both way, respect citizens, also respect each other. Somebody making comments that Dinkins wasn't a good mayor. I mean, it's a very complicated issue.
Yeah.
I mean, you could certainly argue that he hired a lot of cops that led that positioned
we have
Giuliani
now.
for success. Right.
Many
exactly.
years later now, we have the lowest crime rate.
But it's
Okay.
true. 1991, they were not great days. And a couple of other comments, but pretty neat report, Marvin. Great movie. Have it on DVD. Do you still pick your feet in Poughkeepsie? That's one of the lines of the movie. One of Popeye's lines. A very good one too. Anyway,
We talk about crime. There's something we're kind of tonight wanting to
that's
talk
right.
about.
Tonight at 10:30 on Pix 11 here in New York, WPIX. If you're not in New York, you can watch it on our website, pix11.com, or on our app. It's a special called Only in New York, Cracks in the System, and it's looking at how in the 90s, the New York City Police Department and other law enforcement agencies went on a very strong and necessary sort of crackdown on drug use and drug violence, but of course, were there innocent people who were caught up in that sweep and were innocent?
It's a great
people?
documentary.
It's a great documentary, and it explores those very complicated and,
Heath
interesting
Benfield
topics.
did a great job in producing
Heath Benfield, our producer, I hope you watch it. It really raises some very interesting and exposes some injustices from that period.
Really a great documentary.
Yeah.
See it. Also, don't forget, join me Sunday morning, Pix 11 News Close-Up. This week, I'm talking to two aviation experts about the whole controversy with the 737 MAX 8 and 9, the aircraft that crashed last week in Ethiopia, and the crashes have a similarity, that one to one in October of an Indonesian Lion Air. So they talk about that. Also, we talk about the whole scandal that broke this week of college admissions, wealthy parents paying to get their rich kids into highly elite schools in this country. Watch that at 6 a.m. for you early risers. You can always set a DVR, or you can join me over a cup of coffee at 11 a.m. on Facebook.com/Pix11 News, and we'll be streaming it at that time.
That's usually the time I watch, Marvin, 11 a.m.
That's when I watch also.
It's more my speed.
Okay. Over coffee.
Yes,
all right.
exactly.
Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you again next week. Have a great weekend, everyone.